Right, and someone mentioned it in the same breath as WorldCoin, which had an outcry. But explain to us how this is similar, and she's mentioned the data that they collect, how it's similar to WorldCoin. Of course, there's not the all-seeing eye.
Yeah, I think to some extent, this is why it's very important to, as a global company, for a global company to think about context, right? If you bring like an all-seeing eye type of thing, and then you tell people to come and scan their irises, of course you're gonna get into trouble.
Yeah.
But if you tell people upload pictures so that you can share them with your friends and they can press like on that picture, and then meanwhile you're busy scanning their faces and uploading it to your own database, you'll be very welcomed, and that's what Facebook did. Right. So you need to think about the UX of what exactly is going on.
Right.
Now, my main thing about the WorldCoin thing is that, first of all, when I once asked someone who bangered a line to go do this WorldCoin thing,
right.
Why exactly are you doing this? Do you realize perhaps what you're giving away? But he's like, but Google and Facebook take my data and they don't pay me. But right? These guys want to give me 7K. I'll take it.
Right.
Right? So there's a way in which people were thinking about it. Now, I think going again towards the ban, perhaps is not necessarily the right way to think about this question.
Right.
It's largely about understanding what is the real problem we have here.
Okay.
Right? Why do we think that we need to create some kind of protection around this thing?
Okay.
Who are we protecting? What are the problems that we're trying to regulate and the technologies that we're trying to regulate?
Yeah.
That's how we are supposed to think about the issue, especially in terms of things like privacy, which Kenya is doing terribly on, right? This country is a landmine of privacy lawsuits just waiting to happen. A landmine, a literal one. Just consider some of the companies on Wayakiwe. Right? And so there's a larger question around the right to privacy that we really need to think about in terms of safeguarding people's data.
Yeah.
That's a real question around what WorldCoin is doing.
And when you look at the numbers, at least some that have been submitted by Reuters Institute, whether or not they are on point, but it does make TikTok look like it's the giant in terms of the apps and social media platforms, putting figures of 54% of the population being on this app, 29% using it for news consumption. So when you look at that number of how much it has permeated the society, and at least those who have access to such gadgets, and in the name of data collection, are you worried?
How much it's permeated? Yes, because again, like, to be honest, and to be frankly honest, TikTok is doing a terrible job at content moderation.
Okay.
Yeah, they are doing a terrible job at content moderation. I won't get into the weeds of whether they're the #1 app in the country or not, right?
Just explain to a layman content moderation.
So content moderation is basically the decision that technology platforms make to decide what stays on the platform and what gets taken off the platform.
Is that also what goes viral, as she was explaining? Is that content moderation?
Sometimes it has been seen, and this is very emergent. I didn't know if anyone knew that TikTok has something called a heating button.
A heating button?
Yeah, they choose what. There have been reports of them choosing what goes viral, but that's beside the point.
Okay.
Yeah? The main thing is that they choose what remains, fundamentally, they choose what remains on the platform, they choose what goes off of the platform. At the most basic level, that's what a layman would need to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. To that issue of content moderation, there was a ruling on Meta, and I just want us to draw parallels and what this would mean now for TikTok, with your understanding of their arrangement here in Kenya. What that particular ruling on content moderation, because there's a case to be made in the human rights violations for the content moderators on Meta, and that is Facebook or Instagram, what have you. What impact would that have to this conversation of TikTok?
I think a lot of impact, and and this is why I'm glad Odanga shares my opinion that we need to expand this and not just vilify just one company, TikTok, and we need to look at the collective, right? Because what has happened in the courts over the last 2 years with the Meta cases, 3 Meta cases, all the way to the Court of Appeal, which in which Meta lost 2 cases. And I really like what one of the judges, Justice Brian Ongaya, says. He says this is something that the whole nation needs to wake up to. We need to get, the Ministry of Labor, Ministry of ICT, COTU, all these parties need to wake up and begin also giving guidance to the courts in terms of what, because this is an evolving new world. So it's an evolving, some of the lawsuits, like in this case with Justice Brian, that was in the labor courts. So even in understanding what qualifies, as labor in today's world, we need to interrogate that. And, going back to Odanga's question, who is actually benefiting from TikTok? How many Kenyans are they employing? Are they paying any taxes in Kenya? And the quality of those jobs. Yes, content moderators are making money, but are they being paid an equal wage to content creators in other platforms? So if an influencer in Kenya is being discriminated against and earning less, for their content than a content creator in another part of the world, we should not be happy with that. So I think we need to use what we've learned from the legal system universally to cover all content platforms, including YouTube. It shouldn't just be like we don't have enough time to sue every single company and come up with a rule, a rule book for how we're going to relate with them. So the truth of the matter is we're playing a catch-up game, and we need to really, really style up. We need to invest heavily. So my concerns that you asked me earlier, what we've learned from other jurisdictions that have had the conversation about banning or even gone ahead and banned TikTok. Honestly speaking, banning TikTok is not evolutionary. It's not a revolutionary act, because it's been done and talked about in very many countries so far. Okay. This weekend, is it yesterday, Somalia has decided to ban it. And Somalia has, very strong points. When you actually talk about radicalization and terrorism, you catch everyone's attention. And the truth of the matter is we actually have statistics. Just before the elections, there's statistics to show that TikTok was being used, to weaponize, tribal hate speech, right? So why are we allowing it to go so far and then choosing only to moderate it when it comes to, for instance, sexual content? That's where the arguments, if we play at that level, the arguments you will hear in court will just go very rudimentary. It will be like, oh, it's our bad manners. We can't penalize big companies just because we are behaving badly and our children are behaving badly. Is that really an argument to have? If your child is radicalized and they join whatever terrorist group, your child will bear the consequences of breaking the law. They'll be labeled a terrorist. If they go to Somalia, they won't be allowed to come back. They lose their citizenship. There'll be personal consequences. Yeah. So why would we hold children and citizens at a higher threshold than we are holding multi-billion corporations who are benefiting from the same content?